There are times when you need to put a camera in odd places, particularly if you're installing a home video security system. Here's our riff on a standard wall and roof mount camera stand that'll cost you about a third of what you're spending for the same thing commercially. Printable Science presents a 3D printed wall and ceiling camera mount. What we wanted was a camera mount that we could screw into the ceiling so we could get a video shot of our workbench directly from above it. And I guess if you're making cooking vids, you might want one over your stovetop as well. Well, poking around, we found out there's a pretty standard design out there that looks like this. It's made out of metal and it costs anywhere between $3 and $5. But with your 3D printer, you can churn one out for about a third of that. You're going to need to supplement your printed parts with a 1 inch to 1.5 inch long, 1/4 inch diameter bolt, but they're readily available at your local big box hardware store for less than a quarter. Now, if you're planning on using these mounts outside, you probably don't want to use PLA. It'll degrade in the elements, but there's a number of filament choices out there these days that'll stand up far better to the outdoor weather. The most interesting part of this mount design is the gimbal mount mechanism. It consists of a sphere with a protruding screw that in turn is screwed into the tripod mount plate on your camera. The sphere then rests on the scalloped portion of the mount, which allows the camera to be oriented however you like. To keep everything in place, the ball with the bolt is first inserted in a turret with the cutout in the end. This turret is then placed on top of the mount, and then a threaded collar is placed on top of that. Tightening the collar presses the ball into the scallop, and once you tighten it enough, the ball is not going to be able to be moved at all, and that will preserve the orientation of the camera you've selected. 3D printers are not great at printing off spheres, and we have the additional requirement of getting that bolt mounted into that ball as well. So we print the ball in 2 halves, each of which has a knockout for the bolt head. Now we just epoxy the 2 halves together using enough epoxy to ensure that the bolts will be glued to the ball, but not so much that there's so much epoxy that it'll press out at the edges. To keep the 2 halves of the ball aligned while the epoxy is setting, we've included a handy little jig that you can slip the ball and bolt assembly into while the epoxy is hardening. Just make sure there's no epoxy seeping out around the seam. You don't want the ball sticking to the jig. Final assembly is a snap. Just pull the ball and sphere out of the jig, place it on top of the stand, lower the turret on top, add the collar, and you're almost done. All that remains is to thread the stop plate onto the bolt. Now at this point you'll probably want to put your stand in place with 3 screws or bolts and fasten the mount to the surface where you want it in the general position. And once that's done, you can screw the bolt into your camera base, but don't force it. It doesn't even have to be snug. Fastening the camera securely to the mount is the job of the stop plate. After the bolt has been threaded into the camera, turn the stop plate until it mates with the base of the camera and then tighten it until the connection is secure. So there you have it, a wall and or ceiling mount for your cameras that you can print for a fraction of what you'd have to pay. Thanks for watching, and won't you help by becoming an important part of the Printable Science family and making this channel more valuable and successful. You can help us out by taking the time to watch this video in its entirety and other Printable Science videos as well, perhaps while your 3D printer is printing off this project. You can leave comments and questions below. That will help us to continue to create useful videos and 3D STL files that are printer ready and help you to maximize the power and utility of your 3D printer. Your feedback is very important. If you've enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up button, and if you have just a moment, won't you show your support by clicking the subscribe button below. If you want to make sure you don't miss our upcoming videos on 3D printing, you'll want to click on the notify bell as well. And please consider supporting Printable Science on Patreon using the link supplied below. You can become one of our Patreon supporters for as little as $1 a month, and it'll provide you with lots of extras and additional information, as well as going a long way to defray the cost of making these files and videos. Down below, you'll also find a link where you can download a copy of the STL files from Thingiverse so that you can make your own 3D printed wall and ceiling camera mount. And as always, you can download a copy of the STL files for this and other projects directly from our website. The latest files and a discussion board of our wall and ceiling camera mount are available at the printablescience.com website, where all the science that fits we print.